You're listening to the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast, an intelligent real estate investing how-to community where we break down the sometimes complicated real estate investing techniques into straightforward, simple to understand, and easy to follow components. No schemes, just the well-exercised foundational basics of real estate investing. Join us as together we dive into the world of real estate investing success and further release the real estate investor inside.
Hi, welcome to the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm Joe White, and today I'm going to talk about using equity to buy rental property. I'm losing my camera again. Why? Because if you've owned your house for over 5 years, you likely have equity that could be used to buy a rental property. And that very same equity could be used again and again to build you an entire portfolio of rental properties. And each rental property could provide you with cash flow, and each property could provide its own equity that you could also invest in even more properties. Think of each rental as an oil well, working 24 hours a day, trickling out passive income to you for as long as you own it. All right, so this all sounds great, but how would it actually work? First, what is equity? Equity is what a property is worth above what is owed on it. If you own a property for 5 years, there's a few wealth building dynamics that have likely been hard at work for you trying to make you rich without you even knowing it. So you bought a property 5 years ago, and a few things have likely happened. The first would be debt pay down. Debt pay down is like a savings account, only better. So you've been paying your mortgage each month, for 60 months in fact, and each month that you've made your mortgage payment, you've likely paid both interest and principal. The interest you've been paying to the bank for the privilege of borrowing the money. So don't get upset, you got a very nice tax deduction on this. But the principal has been like paying yourself, and that has likely become equity, 60 months of equity. And at the same time, inflation has likely devalued your debt. So this is highly cyclical, but inflation tends to increase an average of 3.6% per year. It's important to know that your debt, the money you still owe, has likely been decreasing in value. 3.6 multiplied by 5 years equals 18%. You likely have 18% equity from this alone. Next, your property value has likely increased, like a lot. So there's exceptions, but it's generally accepted that property increases in value each year, and there's several factors that affect this, but the national average suggests that your property has increased an average of 5.7% per year. 5.7% multiplied by 5 years equals 28%. You now possibly have another 28% in equity to use, above the 18% mentioned above. And those together, combined, there's a very good chance you now have 46% in equity that you could use to buy a rental property. All right, so let's look at some examples and some real numbers. So you bought a property for $100,000 5 years ago. It's now worth $128,500. So you've paid yourself back $10,324.02 in principal just by making your mortgage payments each month. And that comes to $38,824 in equity. Now don't forget the lender likely had you put down a down payment when you bought the property. So you likely have another 3.5% to maybe 25% in equity depending how much of a down payment you made. So all these factors are not taking into account any improvements that you made to the property, nor are they taking into account any speculation. Is this an up-and-coming area? Some neighborhoods in Philadelphia have appreciated 91.8%. Don't bother calculating that equity. It's just going to break your calculator. So, also we're not taking into account any up markets or any down markets. So for our purposes of this conversation, we're going to view property value differently than market value. In other words, think of property value as a straight line. Market value goes up and it goes down depending on other people's interest in their ability to purchase your property. So if you purchase your property in down market, you likely paid less than what we considered the property to be worth. And if you refinance it in an up market, you will likely get to borrow more from the lender than what we consider that it is currently actually worth. The point is that you have other factors that will either get you more equity or less equity than the above example. Okay, so what if you don't invest all that equity and you just leave it there? You just like knowing it's there and it makes you feel good. Well, investors might call that dead money. Dead money is a term that some financial advisors use for money that's just sitting there, not earning its keep. We can pick on savings accounts some because they tend to have a very low return on investment, especially considering that they have to keep pace with inflation. Remember, if inflation is increasing at 3.6% per year, your savings account interest will need to equal that just to keep you from losing money. But at least with a savings account, your money has a job. Even if it's not a very high paying job, it at least has a job. But unused equity doesn't have a job, and it's just sitting there, not even keeping pace with inflation. If it's not keeping pace with inflation, then you're actually losing 3.6% of net worth every year. Unused equity is extremely costly. You work hard to earn money, and it needs to at least keep itself from merely evaporating from your net worth. So from that perspective, using equity in your property does make sense. So how do you access your equity? When someone says they're a cash buyer, they might not actually have cash, just easy access to it. They have cash-like access, and so can you. So enter my favorite investment tool, the HELOC, a home equity line of credit. A HELOC is typically an extremely low interest line of credit, and it really should have a low interest. After all, you're borrowing the money from yourself, from your equity. In fact, a HELOC will probably be the lowest interest loan that you can get, and that's one of the reasons this is such a great real estate investing tool. The other reason I love HELOCs is that it's merely a line of credit, so you won't pay for this loan unless you use it, and you only pay on the amount that you actually use. If you only use $1 of it, you must now pay back that dollar plus the interest, but no more. HELOCs are incredible investing tools, and we're going to talk more about them another time. Then there's a cash-out refi, which is another way to access your equity. It's just not as attractive as a HELOC, as it typically has a higher interest rate than a HELOC, and you are given the entire lump sum amount of the loan, and you'll need to pay it back and the interest back whether you use it or not. With a HELOC, you can just wait till a great deal, and waiting doesn't cost you anything. But since lenders only extend HELOCs on your primary, the home that you live in, you'll need a cash-out refi to access the equity that you have in a secondary property, like a rental property or a vacation home. So these tends to be tools many of us investors also use. So we're going to put all this together at a different point, but basically many real estate investors create huge cash flowing portfolios by simply reusing equity, taking part of it from one property to buy the next, then the next, then the next. So if you're interested in accessing your equity to have it begin earning you money, you should talk to some lenders. Probably a good starting point might be to talk to a property manager who can get you some good, well-placed referrals and a very good starting point. A lender is going to help you determine how much equity you have and how much of it they will let you access. After that, all you need to do is choose a strategy on how to invest that equity. And we're going to get into those options in other podcasts here on the Grow Real Estate Investing podcast. Meanwhile, I'm Joe White. Happy investing.